What role India and China can play in this?
Well, I've had the opportunity to visit China a number of times in the last 6 to 8 years, 10 years. And there are a few things that I would like to share with you all, which really, I think there's a lot of potential. First, I feel that audiences in China, the cultural, flavor in China, the emotions of the people in China, they're very similar to the emotions of Indians. So the Chinese audience reacts in a very similar way to content prepared in India. That's what my experience was. When I was watching, a number of my films in the screen in China, and the audience was reacting to Dangal, let's say, there was absolutely no difference between an Indian audience reacting to the film and a Chinese audience. It was almost identical the reaction. So I feel that there is a lot of scope and potential for a number of reasons. One, I think India has a very vibrant creative community, and so does China. China has got amazing creative people. I've been to China a number of times. I've seen their live events as well, and I've seen their movies. Their standard of their work is clearly world class. And I think that itself is a great opportunity for India and China to collaborate and work together. I think that whether it's creatively, whether it's on an emotional level, or whether it's even from a business perspective, I think it is only a win-win if we collaborate with China. In fact, over the years, I have been in discussions with my friends from China, and we have often explored the possibility. But now with waves coming in, I think we have a little further drive towards that. I mean, if you look at a film, Indo-Chinese films, if you have a star from China and you have a star from India, that's roughly half the population of the earth. If you want to think. So you have a huge audience already over there. And both India and China have a very ancient civilizations with a lot of history. Both India and China have very ancient civilizations. So I think there's a lot that both of these countries and cultures can offer each other. And I really look forward to a collaboration with talents like that.
Prasad, would you like to talk about how currently Chinese audiences are perceiving India? What kind of storytelling they will look out for, and what are the potential areas we should work on?
So one of the things which kind of personally for me when I went to China years ago was that the way human emotion works, the way family emotion works, the way the value system about parents aspiring for their kids to be successful, worried about their marriage, even smaller details like how a parent will take care of their kids all the way till they are 40, 45. It's very similar. So I realized that one of the biggest opportunity Indian filmmakers had for China as a market was to tell stories which can be authentic to Indian culture. Because there's not so much difference between Indian culture and China. So there is no requirement for say, okay, let's go back to the factory and find out what is that formula which will crack the market. We make good films here. We make good films anywhere. And China somehow has accepted the cinema from around the world. Whether it's Aamir Khan, whether it's films from France, whether it's films from any part of the world. It's the story, it's the way the emotions are working. In your own country, it's the same way it works.
Yeah.
Especially with Aamir, I remember a very interesting story about PK. And the first time I saw the film and it made me cry. I remember our famous panel, I saw it in Raji's office. And then my first reaction was that there was a Chinese assistant of mine who was laughing at the same joke which I was laughing with subtitles. And she was crying at the same word. That gave me the confidence that we don't really need to customize a film for a moment. Just make a film with full honesty. The craft towards honesty towards the craft, honesty towards the story. And it is
Stanley, you have got 3 films
I actually shot 3 films in India.
So why don't you talk about your experience working in India? Because what Prime Minister has envisioned is that we now create in India, shoot in India, and the story should be rooted in India. How do you react to that?
Well, actually, the reason why I come to India to make movies is like when I was a kid in primary school, when I drawing, I always draw the Taj Mahal. You know, the building, the architect is so fascinating. And then when I learned martial arts, the Shaolin Kung Fu, and I found, Aamir coming from India.
Buddha.
Yeah, and Buddha, the Buddhism. I studied that, and then when I make the movie 20 years ago, the myth with Jackie Chan, and I put in the karate too. The ancient, Indian martial art is really, and I want to show, a lot of Chinese audience doesn't know about karate too, and also I found out there's so many beautiful scenery, and a lot of great cultures that we don't know. And only when I come over in 1993, first time, I actually from the Himalaya to the south, to the Bangalore, I toured around the whole country. And I found so many fascinated and so many stories that I want to make. So for the last 20 years, and I managed to make 3 friends in India. Because I found Indian film, I learned a lot because Indian film always about family values, friendship, love, and social issues. All of these issues is really resonate to the Chinese audience. Emotional and relatable storytelling that I think that in the future there's a lot of opportunity for us to be joining together because we're a good neighbor and we share our culture for thousands of years, And I was just talking to Prasad, on my way to India, and we were waiting on the lawn. We were talking about 3 stories that they connect that we could make together. We were talking to Aamir, and working together on some projects. So I really wanted to have more co-production between China and India, and just like what Aamir was saying, that we have huge population, we have huge followers for Bollywood movie and also Chinese movie. Why don't we make more movies together and we share our actors, we share our writers and directors, then maybe we can make some better film for the world. Thank you.
Peter, would you like to throw some light on the way forward, looking at your experience? What could be the next immediate steps that all the creators, filmmakers, should think about and start working on some projects? And what could be the framework, maybe co-production, JV, how do we take the next steps?
Before I answer that question, I have to admit that I am the least qualified speaker on this forum, Indian cinema oriental outlook, because to have my 6th degree of separation, my only association with Indian cinema was Shashi Kapoor when I was a boy in the 70s. Because I grew up in Thailand, half of my high school class is Indian, and I would be eating the lunchbox aloo prasad, which I kept asking for that when I come to India, and my friend Prasad keeps saying that nobody eats that. You don't order aloo prasad in the restaurant.
You don't get aloo paratha in my
I always have aloo prasad. And that's my other association with Indian cinema was in 2005. I was asked to make a musical by 3 Indian investors. One Tamil Indian, one from Malaysia, one from Sri Lanka, and one from Hong Kong, to make a first musical in China called Perhaps Love. And I flew into Mumbai for the first time, and I met with Aamir Khan, who was the top grossing director from Hong Kong. And she agreed to be my choreographer, and she brought 12 Indian dancers to be in Shanghai in the musical with all Chinese, but in 12 Indian dancers. And so that's an anomaly. So that is not really an Indian-China co-production, but because we could use services and expertise from each other's industries, we got to work together. And I started making friends with Indian filmmakers, Aamir Khan, who lives close by in Shanghai, and then I also met with Raju. I was made by my sisters to watch Three Idiots, where the first 15 minutes I couldn't get into because it's very different from my style of filmmaking. And it took me 3 to 4 times until I watched the whole thing, and I watched it 5 times with my daughter, with my wife, and then with my 3 different group of friends in the cinema. And that took me completely into the world of Indian cinema. And back then there was still a lot of song and dance. And now Indian cinema has evolved into something that is not strictly Bollywood, like we used to know Bollywood. So, and then I made friends with Aamir Khan, who has great stories to tell. And I think it's about time that we are pause between the Chinese population and the Indian population. I mean, we have more than half of the population of the world. But I think we need to make movies for the world. I mean, half the population is not enough. And to be able to please each other by putting an Indian actor in a Chinese film or a Chinese actor in an Indian film, I think it's not the only way to go. I think we should make the movie that we believe we love. If it's a local movie, make it local. Look at, COVID was a sad thing, but between COVID and the streamers, the world was watching Korean cinema in subtitles, Thai cinema, Indian cinema, series, and Japanese. And one of the greatest shows I watched a month ago, Adolescents, they speak English with such a heavy northern grassroots accent that is almost like foreign language to everyone. So in that respect, I think any language or any race or any color, it's not the point. It's when the story resonates with you and you can make it. And we need to try to build a collective between filmmakers in Asia, because we do have enough of a calling power, because we have enough population in our own territory. And when we have movies that could appeal to any ordinary folk internationally, we should collectively bargain with the pipeline of distribution, which still belongs to Hollywood at the moment. Although Hollywood and the studio is still trying to figure out what's the future. Because with COVID and with the streamers, I think the studio is also trying to find out what's going on with the world ahead of us. I think this is a very good opportunity for us to be able to make the story that we love. It could be as local as possible, and I still believe in the word local is global, because we're all human beings after all.
So, very important points. Now we should dig deeper with Aamir. And before I ask Aamir to comment on that, there are 3 very clear milestones. One is 2013, when 3 years was released in China, and it did pretty well in the box office. Then 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi signed a bilateral agreement to co-produce films. That agreement exists. Then 2020,
2016 it will be here, so 2017 it will be
17 months challenge. Again, benchmark how successful could be in a market like China? Because as a layman, we think language is a problem. I don't think our storytelling language is a problem. Absolutely not. So, when you pick up themes which are of universal appeal, shared human interest and human memories, that kind of things you have picked up. So today we have to start new work with ambition, big scope and big scale in mind. What will be your roadmap?
Well, actually, for me, I have to say that the way I approach cinema and approach films that I work in, it has to be a very organic process. So, what we are discussing on a surface level, that in principle, I think that there are a lot of benefits for talent in China and India to work together. But the best and the most organic way of that happening is through writing. So it is always the story and it's always the script that comes first, which excites a creative person. And it can come from a Chinese writer, it can come from an Indian writer, it doesn't matter. But importantly, it should excite, the creative communities on both sides who actually feel excited enough to come together and collaborate and make something. And obviously, it should naturally lend itself to both China and India in its theme, in its requirements of maybe actors, but certainly thematically something that connects the two. On a very surface level, you can say, yeah, let's make a big action film, let's have one Chinese star, one Indian star, and one maybe Caucasian star, I don't know. So that's a very surface way of looking at it. One can go that route, but I don't really. That doesn't excite me. What excites me is a story that, because writing is a very lonely job. But the fact is that every film starts with one person sitting alone with the paper and pen. And that, is of so much value. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. And that organic process of a person sitting and writing down a story, which naturally involves, characters from China and India, it has to happen organically. You can't force fit it. I always believe that you can't force fit it. It has to come organically. With the environment being created, with the fact that as creative people we are being encouraged. I personally have now over the years a very healthy relationship with the creative community in China. So I really look forward to it because I've seen the level of their work, outstanding work that people are doing in China. So it would be a real pleasure for me to work with the creative talent in China. But ideally it should happen organically. It should happen in a manner that is very organic. I know that some films are made and a lot of them are successful, which are pre-planned. Yeah, let's take a comedy or an action or a horror and let's take these three actors and make it. So पहले project बनता है. First you make the project and then you write what you're making. You have to write a script around it. That's usually the other way of doing it. It's not that it's the wrong way. There's no right and wrong way to do it. But I am hesitant to go down that road.
So, with permission from our Chinese guests, because we want the message to go to the larger audience, एक्चुअली अभी आपने हिंदी बोलना शुरू किया तो थोड़ा सा इस बात पे भी रोशनी डालनी चाहिए क्योंकि बहुत लोग ये समझना चाहेंगे कम्युनिटी के लोग कि ये फिल्म
अंग्रेजी में बोलता बेचारा समझ नहीं पाता.
My next question to you is, but I want you to speak in English.
अच्छा, okay.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with anything. Yeah. But I don't know. You're not okay with that? Few languages. I think for our guests we should stick to English. Okay. Right.
That's why I believe
All languages for Chinese if you look at
Yeah, so I want to understand from you because technology and innovation and the craft and formatting has changed. So are we talking about large screen cinema or we are talking about OTT? Because now some Chinese Americans are doing wonderful job in Hollywood making micro mini drama and making billions of dollars. So what will be your advice to larger community art and industry? How to approach this problem?
Actually, problem. I think it can go either way. You can make content which is a feature film, and you can also make content which is long form content, which has many episodes in it, which is series, or even really short content which you're talking about. So I think that can be, it really depends on each individual what they would like. I don't think I particularly have any preference between, that.
Right. Prasad, what do you think that currently, like you rightly said, that it should be organic, not just because one comedy or one action movie will work. When we talk about shared culture, civilizational humanity, then what kind of themes would appeal to Indian filmmakers, Chinese filmmakers, and Chinese audience, but made in collaboration with Indians?
So I also very strongly believe in this word, even though it might sound cliche. I believe that stories need to be very organic. I think most of us, all of us in our panel will believe that story, when we think about a story, at least from a creative perspective, I don't think we should take into consideration what market buyer will do. Because today we live in a world where most of our emotions, most of our behavior has become very homogeneous. Thanks to social media, thanks to COVID, thanks to streaming. A young person in, let's say, in Shanghai would not be dramatically different than a young person in India. And a young person in India. So what has happened is our behavioral patterns have become very similar. So I don't think there is a need to try and crack a formula. Because filmmaking is, I know there are words like formula film, but I feel for a larger population like China, because China is not a diaspora market for India.
Right.
Organic audience. So they will never connect with a film which doesn't connect with them at the core level. And there are a lot of, as we discussed earlier also, there are a lot of shared values. What we can do to support it is we can facilitate more young writers, filmmakers from India to travel to China. Like what Aamir did beautifully. For years, Aamir has been so open about interacting with the Chinese filmmakers. We consider him, and that sounds very wrong when I say we, but we consider him as part of our Chinese film. He's one of our own. And that has happened not only because of his films, but also the fact that he puts an effort to travel to that market, understand, meet those creators. I think one thing which we can do to facilitate more storytellers to interact with each other is to have filmmakers from India to travel to China, filmmakers from China to go.
Because the more you interact, then the more you brainstorm, then the ideas start coming.
Exactly. So it's still organic, so you can't game this. So only thing is that you become more familiar with each other's style. So now when yesterday we had a very lovely dinner and Peter and Aamir and we were chatting about things and we suddenly said, oh, we have common interest or something. Now that might become an inception in our head when we go back 1 year later, oh, suddenly that music can come out of the story. So that's the way I see the way forward.
And the other element to this action plan could be that Indo-China Film Festival kind of stuff.
That's definitely.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. And retrospective
Also
of
in these film festivals, they have Indian films and Chinese films, and then during the festival you have creative people from both countries interacting.
correct.
That's a great idea. So at least my film will be seen by the Indian people.
No, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think one of the things which definitely maybe part 2 of Waves, second year of Waves, we can set up a committee from both sides of the.
I think this is one clear takeaway that you all think that one should start.
Yeah, no, we should definitely.
Immediately. One festival in Shanghai, another in Mumbai.
Yes, we should love to.
We are running out of time, so last question this time in terms of business model and monetization opportunities. How do you think two stakeholders from two countries should plan a movie or a project?
Well, I think some of the movie really like, let's say, Indian Chinese production, like Dangal, they are doing well in India, but they're doing super in China. Just like the movie that I made in India, Kung Fu so in India, but it's huge in China. So sometimes a different story, different background, you might make it work in your local, just like the Jackie Chan movie I made, like some of them I do it well in Hong Kong, but I do it great in America, like the Robert and Bronx. And we didn't expect it because like the whole movie is only cost $6 million US. And then the distributor come to me and tell if you want to have a broad distribution in America, each screen costs you 15,000 PMA. So if you have 2,000 screens, that means it costs $30 million US to promote and distribute the movie. So at that time, for a Hong Kong filmmaker back in 30-something years ago, we can't even think that it will have a chance. But if you just have your dream, just have, filmmakers is all dreammakers. As long as we work and we get together, our dream will come true. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have enough time to give justice with such a ambitious subject. But in conclusion, I want to say only one thing. The hesitation, the elephant in the room about geopolitics and politics is actually has been thrown out of the room. Now the countries are ready to make big leap as far as people relationships are concerned, as far as cultural exchanges are concerned, and we are hoping, and I am very, very confident that we will see some big action happening between India and China very, very soon. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you all.